Hello and welcome to the Transportation Exchange Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Cuddy, and on today's episode, we welcome Kevin Tallman, CEO of Rush Truck Centers of Canada. Welcome, Kevin, to the podcast.
Thank you, Jason. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so this is exciting because when we had the vision of doing this about a year ago, I guess a bit longer than that, you were one of the people we wanted to have on, mainly to tell the story of the company and the business that we all work for. And so we're happy you're here to do it today. So I figured we'll dive right into it and let's, I guess, start about how the company got started and got founded.
Yeah, sure. So, it's an interesting story. My father started the business back in 1973, but I'll take you back just a little bit before that, just to paint the picture of how my dad actually came to be in the truck business. So my dad had a fairly challenging upbringing. His father passed away when he was 13 years old. He died in the Second World War. So my father, being the oldest of 5 siblings, was faced with a very difficult challenge. So, he made a difficult decision to quit school in grade 8 and get a job full time. So his first job was delivering milk on a milk truck. And he needed to support his family. So he just, stepped up and, in the face of adversity, made a difficult decision. And that really was a bit of his springboard into, the business world, albeit on a very small scale. So, over the years, he transitioned from delivering milk to delivering parts at an automotive dealership, got a passion for the automotive industry and worked his way up a GM car dealership. So parts, sales, general management, and then had an opportunity to buy a Fina gas station. So I think that was in the late 60s, maybe 70. And he owned the gas station and was selling used cars on the side. So, he was doing that for a couple years in Kemptville. And his good friend, Ken Seymour, who happened to be the founder of Kriska Transportation, approached him about a business opportunity. So I've heard the story from my dad. I've heard the story from Ken Seymour. They're both fairly similar. So I kind of believe the facts of it. So Ken had a small international harvester truck dealership in Kemptville called Ken Seymour Motors. He wanted to sell it so that he could buy a transportation company called Kriska. And he approached my dad about it. So, my dad, his comment to Ken was, "Hey, listen, I'm honored that you give me this opportunity, but Ken, I don't have any money, so I can't buy your dealership." And Ken, if you ever knew Ken, he's a very quick-witted guy. So his response to my dad was something to the effect of, "Listen, Jerry, I told you I wanted to buy my dealership from me. I didn't say you needed any money to do it." So my dad's version of the story is Ken made him an offer he couldn't refuse. So my dad sold the Fina station, bought the dealership from Ken, and that was really his foray into the truck dealership business, which, was an incredible opportunity. My dad for his entire life was grateful to his best friend, Ken Seymour, for giving him this opportunity. And then that, from there just kind of exploded into, what we see today. So, 1973, I believe, was the date that my dad bought the dealership. Over the years, he was presented with a few opportunities to buy neighboring dealerships. So International Harvester at the time used to be in the dealership business and have corporate stores. So in 1980, I believe it was, they wanted to sell their Brockville location. They approached my dad and said, "Hey, have we got a deal for you?" And my dad, when he was asked to step up in his life, he always found a way to do it, whether the timing worked or whether it didn't. He just persevered and made it work. So he bought Brockville in 1980. He bought Ottawa in 1983. And then, had 3 dealerships for a number of years and kind of grew, our brand and our reputation. And my dad, his approach to business was pretty simple. He worked really hard. He treated people really well, both employees and customers. And he was such a giving person that, by reputation, it just kind of helped his business. And although he didn't have a lot of formal business training, the ability to engage with people and just, I guess, the ability to be liked and to help people really helped offset maybe some of the more technical business skills that one would require, to run a business that size. So, over the years, ran those businesses, hired some really good people, grew his market share, won a few awards with international. I ended up joining the company out of university in 91. One of my very first tasks as a 21-year-old was opening a brand new location in Kingston. So International had identified Kingston as a market they wanted to be in. They didn't have a location there. So they approached my dad and said, "Hey, Jerry, how would you like to be the dealer in Kingston?" And my dad, if you knew him at all, he didn't say no to anybody, right? So I got the privilege of starting a dealership from scratch in Kingston, not knowing anything about anything and really learning a lot of painful lessons on the way. So, learned what it was like to have to go out and hire people, learn what it's like to have to go out and conquest customers I've never met before that didn't know us and we didn't know them. So, for me on a personal level, it was a great learning experience to kind of, get immersed in the business right away and learn what it takes to build business. And, I would say ever since 1991, since that first experience, I have been fascinated with building businesses. I just love the building piece. That's really something that, growing and expanding and all of that stuff is something that's certainly an interest to me. So after buying Kingston in 91, we had an opportunity to buy Cornwall, I believe it was, in 1996, Belleville in early 2000s. I can't remember the exact time. And then, for a period of time, we didn't have a lot of growth. We really had, 6 dealerships, a couple hundred people working for us. And we were one of the highest market share dealers that International had. So we, had somewhere around 50% market share, which by today's standards is unheard of. Yeah. We were in maybe a 1,500 truck market. So, we were considered by International as one of their better dealers, certainly the top 10% consistently year over year. So I ended up buying into the business around 2011. So, one of the things that I was faced with as the president of the company then is, listen, we have 50% market share. The chances for us to dramatically grow our market share, is pretty minimal like that, but the chances of us losing half our market share is pretty great.
True.
So do we sit back and wait for somebody to take our share? Do we try and pour all of our time and resources into trying to grow our business, even further, which, by all accounts, it would have been very difficult? Do we look at getting into other businesses in markets we're already in to kind of diversify our product offering? Or do we look at growing the geographic footprint of our company and trying to get more market exposure and grow our business that way? So, after we evaluated all of those options, we decided, we're a really good truck dealer, like probably one of the best. We don't really know a lot about any other businesses, right? Yeah. So, we said, look, we want to grow our geographic footprint with International. They're good partners. They offer us great products. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them today. Let's hook our wagon to them and let's see how big we can get it. So that's really maybe the more formal growth strategy of our company. I would say up until, that point, it was a bit of growth by osmosis.
Right.
Like, we were presented opportunities and we, just said yes, right? Yeah. But I would say, by 2011, we actually developed a bit of a formal strategy on where we wanted to be. We had, a 5-year strategic plan. And, we were actually executing on a formal business strategy, which was the first time, we had done that. And that also is something that I think has really helped us get where we're going. So let me fast forward a little bit. So our first major, what I would describe as transformational acquisition was in 2012 when we bought the dealership here in Mississauga.
Right.
So at the time it was called Western Toronto International. So International had owned that dealership for several years. So just to give you a bit of background on Mississauga, the dealership here had been in financial distress 3 times in 20 years. International ended up buying it back each of those times. So we were really, I'd say, a little bit leery of buying it. But, so I sat back and said, okay, well, 3 people have tried in different instances and have failed miserably in Toronto. But hey, listen, if we can figure this out, this is the largest truck market in the country. Yeah. Like, the growth opportunities for our company are immense. So, I made the decision, we're gonna try and negotiate a deal with International, and, ended up negotiating what I thought was a really good deal. So I'm downtown in Toronto in a lawyer's office, had just signed all of the papers at the lawyer's office to buy Western Toronto International. Haven't left the lawyer's office yet. Get an email on my phone. The email says, U.S. courts overturn EPA's interim ruling. Navistar may not be able to sell engines. As a result, may be bankrupt. So I had literally just personally guaranteed millions of dollars in debt.
Yeah.
Hadn't left the lawyer's office yet. And that was the email I got regarding the whole Navistar MaxForce fiasco, which was unfolding as this deal was going on. So I sat back and said, well, I'm not sure whether buying the dealership in Mississauga was the best decision or not. But I couldn't erase my signature at the lawyer's office. Sure. So I needed to come up with a plan and figure out, hey, how do we make this all work? So, thankfully, when we bought the dealership, we had a lot of good people. We were able to bring some more talent to the organization and help it grow. And, one of the bad things about the Mississauga market was International's market share was very poor for a number of years. But the good side of that is 90+% of the customers had never had a bad International truck or MaxForce engine experience. So it really allowed us to go out and grow our share in our biggest markets while we were losing a ton of share in our core market. So it really helped
balance you out.
Yeah, balance that out, and really was transformational for us and allowed us to take out some redundant costs and consolidate our head office here in Toronto, and it allowed us to weather the storm. So from there, once we got kind of solid footing, I sat back and I go, okay, what is our strategy going forward? Because there's a few companies that have approached me about buying. International's having significant financial challenges. We didn't know if they were going to go bankrupt, if they were going to be around. So I had to sit back and evaluate the situation. I kind of thought about it 2 different ways. So if we do nothing and Navistar goes bankrupt, we're out of business. There is no way we're going to recover it. 90% of our revenue comes from International trucks and parts. It's game over. Yeah. If we go out and we buy a bunch more dealerships and we take on a bunch more debt and Navistar goes bankrupt, it's the exact same result. Yeah. It's over, right? So by us going out and growing our geographic footprint and making deals and being able to take out redundant costs and all that, there was potential upside if Navistar stayed in business and figured out this engine fiasco. But there was no additional downside. We weren't taking on any more risk because the end game was identical either way. So I made the decision, listen, we're already all in. There's no way we can recover. I personally am not smart enough to go and work in another industry. I only know how to run a truck dealership.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say, I know how to run a truck dealership and I know how to sweep a floor with a broom, but sweeping a floor with a broom does not pay very well. No. So I'm going to put all my time and effort into running a truck dealership, doing the best that I can, hiring the best people and just, giving it 110%. And wherever the chips fall, they're going to fall. I'm not going to worry about things that I can't control. So from there, we bought Woodbine Truck Center 2014. We opened a greenfield location in Oshawa maybe a year before that. So that really gave us 3 locations in the GTA, which was critical, for our customers to make sure that we were no more than 30 minutes away from them, in Canada's biggest market. So really, gave us a bit of a competitive advantage from a service network standpoint and allowed us to grow and expand our business. After Woodbine in 2014, we did our first multi-location deal up in Northern Ontario when we bought True North Truck Centers. So that gave us 3 additional locations up in the northern part of the province. After that, we bought Tandit National Lease's leasing business here in the GTA. And then we ended up, I'm going to say 2017, I believe it was, we ended up buying Peel Truck and Trailer and Cobra Trailer Manufacturing. So that really takes you up to, 2018, 2019. From that point, really we were looking at how can we make our business better. One of the biggest things that when I was sitting back looking at the business is, really struggled with our information systems, with our use of technology. We didn't have a particularly good operating system. The business had kind of outgrown it. So we decided, we're going to go to a couple of the biggest dealers in the US, and we're going to look to see what they have for technology because, we can learn from other dealerships and maybe help, avoid some of the costly mistakes of implementing a failed technology strategy. So, I'd say middle of 2018, we went and saw the 2 biggest international dealers in the US. The first was Summit Truck Group, and they really had an interesting solution. So they used the same business system we did, but they had a reporting interface that actually extracted the data out of the system and presented it in a much more user-friendly format. So, it was good, better than we had certainly, but not the game-changing technology we were hoping to acquire. So the second visit on that same trip, we went to Rush Truck Centers in New Braunfels, Texas. So we met with them. Rush Truck Centers, as a bit of background, developed their own business system using the SAP platform. So they spent somewhere near $100 million US, to develop this system. We went there, had a demo from their system, and we were absolutely blown away. Like, it was so far advanced from anything we had seen before. We're like, this is the solution. So when we were on the trip, actually got about an hour to spend with the CEO of Rush, Rusty Rush at the time. So my sales pitch to Rusty is, hey, listen, you've got a phenomenal business system. You're only in the US, we're only in Canada. Why don't you license your technology to us?
Right. We
will pay you a revenue stream for you, and it's a win-win. And Rusty Rush, for anybody that knows him, he's got a fairly unique voice. So I'll try and do my Rusty Rush impersonation. Boy, our technology is our secret sauce, and there ain't no way you're getting our secret sauce.
Awesome.
But what he meant by that was, he viewed it as such a competitive advantage, to his business and all of that he wasn't letting anybody see it. But he did say to me, listen, we're not licensing it to anybody, but if we happen to own a part of your business, we would make that system available to you. So, we kind of left it at that. And I went back and thought about things in Toronto. And, at that time, we had taken our business about as far as we could take our business on our own. And what I mean by that is, from the time I took over, our company was about 100 million in sales. To this point in time, 2019, we were about 400 million in sales. So we had quadrupled the size of our business in 9 years. Yeah. In doing so, we took on an incredible amount of debt, and we had really reached the limit of how much we could borrow without some really complicated financial engineering, whether it's, syndicated bank financing arrangements, or perhaps bringing in private equity to improve the leverage on the balance sheet. And all of those things for me came with a lot of complexities. People that don't understand the business, people that may have competing views on timing and exit and strategy and all of that. So I really was resistant to doing that. But when I sat back and thought about Rusty's comment, it was like, well, here's what I would be getting on a partnership with Rush. I'll be getting by far best in class technology. I would be getting tremendous access to capital to continue to grow and expand our business. We would be getting best in class buying power that's unrivaled in the industry. And we would be getting the largest service network in the US, which would tremendously benefit our over-the-road north-south carriers. So, I sat back and looked at all of the options on and the other thing too is, one of the options would have been just stay the size we are, pay down our debt, do nothing. That's the least interesting thing for me as somebody that loves to build businesses. Yeah. So that was super boring. So I said, no, I want to figure out how to get from $400 million in sales to $1 billion. That's stuff that really excites me. Right. So in knowing that, knowing I couldn't do it on my own, I resigned myself to the fact I'm going to need a partner. And then when I'm evaluating all the different options available to me, Rush Truck Centers checked all of the boxes that I was looking for, and some that I didn't even realize, I needed or could benefit from. So, that's kind of how we started, with our partnership with Rush Enterprises. So not the same way that a lot of people think where, we were going out sourcing it. It was really an innocent meeting on IT that turned into, a phenomenal partnership. So, from there, we closed a joint venture agreement, which is a 50-50 ownership agreement in February of 2019. And then, since the joint venture agreement was signed, we acquired 2 locations, Archer Truck Sales in St. Catharines and Welland. And then in July of 2021, we bought Maxim Truck Leasing's Mississauga dealership. So that kind of gives you a bit of the background on the chronology of our company, where we got started, why we continued to grow and expand our business, and how we ended up being partners with Rush Enterprises. One of the things that I didn't touch on that I think is really important to recognize is, one of the reasons that the industry is consolidating, north-south, we're certainly not the only dealer that's getting bigger and more geography by any means, but our customer base is consolidating. So our customers continue to get bigger, more complex. They require service solutions, in some cases across the province, in some cases across the country. and in other cases across the continent. So, consolidation, I think, is going to be, a continuing trend. I think it's going to accelerate as these customers get bigger and more sophisticated. They're better at buying, margins get compressed. So one of the ways that, companies can react to that is by getting bigger themselves, right, and, leveraging the economies of scale and eliminating, redundant costs and increasing their buying power. So that's really, the trend. We're certainly not the first company that figured that out. But a lot of companies over the years have failed miserably in growth strategies. And, I think that I'm really proud of the job that our company has done and that our people has done, to help execute a very successful growth strategy. And I think, the best is yet to come with us on that.
Yeah. And I think, from working here for the last few years, I remember when I came here, I had come from a large US public company. So I was coming here as like, great, family run Canadian company. I'm so excited. And then within 8 months, all of a sudden this joint venture comes, like, oh no, I'm back at it again. But I must say, of all the different places I've been at, I think it says something about yourself, but also to Rusty, you guys, it's a second generation, both of you.
Yep.
And I think that comes through. And we talk about, the growth. Yes, the growth is there. Obviously, they're massive. And obviously, we're part of it as a joint venture. So we are the largest truck dealer, in North America.
Right.
But it's still personal, right?
Right.
You're still here every day. Rusty's there. You go see customers. It's not this big corporate identity that is not a shell, but is so far removed from the everyday user that you lost that personal touch. And I think that's, what's helped with the growth, but also from, as you go through lean times with customers, there's still that personal interaction and personal connection that customers feel. And it's not just like dealing with this big, massive company that has no personality behind them.
Right. So, I spent a lot of time at Rush Enterprises head office in Texas, and I am absolutely fascinated how similar our businesses are. So when I first went into the joint venture, I was thinking, there's no way this is going to work. We've got a small entrepreneurial family business, that, it is kind of unique and really fun. And then we've got this huge publicly traded company. So for context, Rush Enterprises generated $5 billion US in sales last year. Yeah. They employ 6,500 people and they make a few $100 million a year US. So, okay, from an outsider looking in, you would think, very institutionalized, very little entrepreneurship inside the business and just your experience of the public company, that was my view going in. I couldn't have been more surprised. So, Rush Enterprises, I describe it as like a massive, incredibly well-run, well-structured, entrepreneurial family, publicly traded company. Yeah. They're very unique. And part of that is Rusty Rush, whose family founded Rush Enterprises in 1965, is at the helm of the company. And he's very quick at making decisions. He knows the industry well. He's great at attracting talent and managing people and, dealing with customers. He's just a really hands-on operator. And that's one of the things that he really looks for in his company is he likes to find operators, people that have worked in the business, that understand it and can run it in a similar fashion. He does a really good job of communicating his values, telling his family story, and just really, painting the picture of a big family business. And it's kind of refreshing to see. And I think it gives them a bit of a competitive edge because, we've got the size, the scale, the access to capital of all the public companies, but they have the culture of a family business, and the employees that work there just love working there. The customers like dealing with them, and they run it very similar to the way we run our business. So it's a refreshing change, and certainly something I wasn't expecting going into the joint venture.
Yeah, and you see it like when you took over this location here in Mississauga, where we are today, pre-Rush, but then with the Rush Group, there's not a mass exodus of employees, who don't see the value, because I think the values are just true core values of how you treat people well. And it goes back to what you learned from your father, how he interacted with people, right? It's people buy from people, right?
Yep.
And you solve problems with people. Like, you need to be involved and have that personal connection. I don't think any of that's been lost from the first dealership to where we are to, realistically probably where we're headed, in the future. And I think as long as that stays true and the culture is there, I think that gets down to the customer level, and people see that and want to work with that.
Right. And so, in the whole scheme of things, I 100% agree with what you said. And I only know how to run my business one way. So here are my 4 underlying principles of how to run my business. And it's really not difficult. So number 1, I want to hire people that are a lot smarter than me. Thank God that is a huge talent pool, because most people are smarter than me. The second thing I want to do is empower them to make decisions. Yep. The third thing I want to do is reward them for their performance. And the fourth thing I want to do is stay out of their way.
Yeah.
So really simple principles, but I find, we're in the people business, and whoever has the best people are going to win. So in order to attract and retain the best people, you need to give them some autonomy. People want to, own a little part of the business. They want to kind of run their own show. Good people, certainly.
Yep.
So I've tried to do that. I want them to participate in the upside of the company. So if the company does well, I want them to do well personally. So those things really align well with really good people. And, we're not a perfect company. There are a lot of things that we could do a lot better, but I would say hands down, one of the biggest competitive advantages we have better people than our competitors. I am absolutely convinced of that. And that is really the key to our success. And in that environment where you're hiring really smart people and they've got autonomy and they've got performance systems that are aligned with your strategy, and they're getting rewarded for their hard work, and they know, hey, if I do X, I'm going to get Y. The other thing, they don't want to be micromanaged, right? Good people don't want to be micromanaged. And thankfully, I don't know how to micromanage. I don't have the attention span. I'm not smart enough. I don't know whether it's ADD or whatever it is, but that's just never been my style. So, I think the company that we've built and the way that we manage the company helps us attract and retain really good people, and really good people are critical to the company's success, critical to any company's success. So that's really, if we had a secret sauce, as Rusty, so eloquently put it, I would say that's our secret sauce here, at Rush Truck Centers of Canada's. We have better people, we have great systems, and we've got a great culture, and that really, is the key differentiator in our marketplace. Yep.
And makes sense. Get out of people's way. You say, if you hire right, let them do what they need to do. And you see it, I see it in my role, with the people we report to. Yep. You don't have, 5 meetings a week. You're not doing 8 different reports to, but at the same point in time, you're in constant communication. I can walk by your office and pop my head and we can say hi. I can talk to other people, and everyone's sharing information, and there's no linear path as far as how you have to report everything up and down. Obviously things need to get done, but the reality is, I think everyone feels it's like a big family, and we are a big family. We're all headed towards the same goal, kind of pointing in the same direction. And if we're all doing the right thing that we're supposed to be doing to the best of our ability, and we see the results, we've seen it. Like, you've seen it get through the Max Force era, which was a hard era for international, and we're into another era now where, there's constraints on production, but we're still doing well as a business, regardless of what the industry is doing as a whole. We keep moving forward and finding ways to succeed.
Right. So, and, you hit on a couple of really good points there. So, we try not to have too many meetings with ourselves, right? And not just, that's for me. I didn't cover this in my background, but I spent a significant amount of my time in my career on the truck sales side. So I actually really enjoy getting out, seeing customers, working on transactions. I think, of all of the things that I'm not very good at, I think I'm reasonably good at truck sales. So one of the things I always sat back and looked at as a truck salesperson is, hey, listen, the more time that we're in a boardroom sitting across from one another talking to ourselves, the more time our competitors are talking to our customers.
Right.
So let's try and minimize the amount of time we're meeting with ourselves and maximize the amount of time that we're spending with our customers. And if we can do that, we are going to increase our chances for success. We're going to increase our chances of selling more trucks, growing our market share, selling more parts and services as a result, and being more successful as an organization. So that's something that, over the years I've always believed strongly in. I think, it's important to have management meetings, and it's important to communicate how the company's doing and what's coming at us, and, kind of a state of the union and all that. And, we do all of those things, but we certainly don't have meetings with ourselves for the sake of having meetings. And I think, those are just some of the little things that I just take for granted, that when other people come here, especially from bigger corporations, that it's a breath of fresh air for them. So
agreed. It is a breath of fresh air. So
right.
Look, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I appreciate you taking the time you have, give us the history of not only the business, but also how you got into it, through starting up locations, truck sales, the growth, the partnership, and, the future looks good for where we're headed. And I think the partnership is strong, and, the industry is, we can see it's at max capacity right now. So, as we can produce more, we move more, and the overall industry will continue to grow. So I do want to thank you for taking the time to sit down with us today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jason. And just kind of, a few closing comments. As much as, our company has enjoyed a tremendous amount of success, over the last 40 some years and all of that stuff, I truly believe that the best years are yet to come. And I think, it's a really exciting time to be in this industry. I think there's going to be an incredible amount of change over the next decade as we start looking at, alternative powertrains, electrification, all these really neat trends and all of this. And the one thing that I'm, very confident of, all of the change that's going on in the industry, our organization is going to be one of those organizations that sees the whole business cycle through, and we're going to be one of the companies that are coming out the other side of this stronger and even more successful than we've been. So thank you very much for having me. Really appreciate you doing the Transportation Podcast. It's something that certainly is unique in our industry, really informative, creative format that I'm just happy to be a part of. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you again for making the time. That concludes today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Kevin Tallman. I want to remind you to subscribe and check out our new website, transportationexchangepodcast.ca, for all past episodes. Until next time, thanks for listening.